Okay, so good morning to everyone. So let's begin today's lecture. Okay. Okay, so in the last lecture, we were looking at closure properties of regular languages. So so we are talking about a language class, right, which is a class of all regular languages. Right? Uh, and so we are interested in properties, right, which hold for all regular languages, right? So one of the type of properties, well, there are two types of properties that we'll look at, right? So we'll look at closure properties and we will look at decision properties, right? So closure properties are properties, right, which say that, okay, if you perform some operation on a regular language, right, or on some regular languages, right, then is the resulting language still a regular language or not? So we saw that for operations like union, concatenation, and pre-closure, right, which is the asteroid operator, regular languages are closed. Right, in the sense that if you perform these operations on regular languages, then you get another regular language, right? And the proof is based on the representation in terms of regular expressions. Right? So every regular language can be expressed in the form of a regular expression, and regular expressions are closed under union, concatenation, and closure. That's why regular languages are also closed under these operations. So we also looked at this operation of intersection, right? If you take two regular languages, right, and if you find the intersection, then is the intersection regular or not, right? And so in order to so it is so the regular languages are in fact closed under intersection, and in order to prove this, right, or in order to show this, we basically introduce this concept of a product automaton, right? So just to quickly revise, right, so in a product automaton, the state space, right, so we are given two automatons, right, uh, and the state space of the product automaton is going to be a cross product, right, of the state space of the individual automatons. So here in this case, right, we have this we have one of this, we have one of the automaton which basically accepts strings of odd length, right, and rather with odd number of ones, right? And then we have this other automaton which accepts strings which end in one. Right? So that product automaton, right? So we can look at the state space, right? So the state space is the cross product of the state space of the individual automata, right? So for example, you have A and B and C and D, right? So the state space consists, in the product automaton consists of tuples like AC, AD, BC, and BD, right? The start state. Right? So the start state of the product automaton is the tuple corresponding to the start states of the two individual automaton. So here A is the start state of the first automaton and C is the start state of the second automaton. So therefore AC is the start state of the product automaton. So this is this start state symbol, right? The final state, right? So the final state is again the cross product of the final states of the individual automata, right? So here B and C, right, are the final states of the individual automata, and therefore this tuple BC is the final state of the product automata. Right? And the last thing that we need to that we need to that we need to configure is the transitions of the product automata. So whenever you are in a state of the product automaton, right, and you see a symbol, then the transition, right, will consist of the transitions of the constituent automata, right. So for example, if you are in the state AC, right, and you see zero, so then you look at the transition of the first automaton. So A on zero goes to A, so that's why this AC goes to A, and C on zero goes to D. So that's why this AC tuple is going to go to AD tuple on the symbol zero, right, and so on. So that's how we define the transitions of the product automaton. Okay, and we can prove, right, formally that the language of this product automaton is actually going to be the intersection of the languages of the two individual automata. Okay. So are there any questions regarding this construction? Okay. So let's look at some more operations that you can perform on regular languages and try to figure out whether or not they are closed. Right? The class of regular languages is closed under this operation. So for the first operation is difference. Right? So this is the usual set difference. So if L and M are regular languages, then we ask the question, right? That what about L minus M? So this is the set minus. So L minus M is the set of all strings which are in L but not in M. So is L minus M a regular language or not? And so it turns out that this L minus M is also a regular language. Uh, so which means that regular languages are closed under difference as well. Okay. So for the proof, we will again go back to the product automata. Right? So let's say we are given two automata A and B, right? Such that L is the language of A and M is the language of B, right? And let's say that we construct this product automaton C, which is the product of A and B. Okay? So what should be the final states of C, right? So the start states and the transitions are the same that we discussed last time, right? For the intersection, but the final states are going to be different, right? So what should be the final state of this automaton C, right? This product automaton C, so that the language of C will be the language of A minus the language of B. Okay. Okay, so I have two suggestions. So Costa is saying final states of A and not final states of B. And Alan Joel is saying F1 cross F2 raised to C. Okay, yeah, so that's correct, right? So yeah, complement C. So that's correct. So Kostap's answer is also correct. So basically, it should be the final states of A, right? And a multiplication, that cross product with the non-final states of B, right? So we can write this as, so since F1 is the final state of A, final states of A, right? So we can write this as F1 cross Q2 minus F2. So this is how we can formally write the final states of the automaton C, right? So since these are the final states of the automaton, right? So what does it mean, right? So whenever you process a string, right, on this product automaton, right, and at the end, right, if you reach one of the states here, right, then this means that the so then that would mean that in the in the automaton A, right, you basically reached a final state, right? But in the automaton B, you have reached a non-final state, right? So which means that that string is going to be accepted by A, but it's not going to be accepted by B, and that's why it's in L minus M. So yeah, okay. And right, so we can also work out the product DFA for the difference in this example. Right? So here, the construction is the same, right? The only thing that's different is the final state, right? So since the final state of this first automaton is B and the second automaton is C, right? So we said that the final state of the product automaton for difference should be so it should be F1 cross Q2 minus F2, right? So which means that we will have B and then we will have D, right? Since D is the non-final state of the second automaton, so therefore BD is going to be the final state of this product automaton, right? For difference. And what's the language that's accepted by this product automaton? So this is the set of all strings which basically have odd number of ones, but which do not end in one. So yeah. So this is how you can also sort of construct automaton for more complex languages, right? So in the sense that if you want to construct an automaton for some language, right, which has property A but not property B, then you can construct the individual automaton for A, the properties A and B, and then use this product automaton technique, right, for difference in order to get the final automaton for the language that you desire. Okay. So let's look at this union again, right? So we know that regular languages are closed under union, right? So but we went through this route of regular expressions in order to prove this, right? But we can also go through the route of automaton, right, in order to show this. Right? So in particular, if C is the product automaton of A and B, right, and we want to say that so what should be the final states of C so that the language of C is the language of A union language of B. So, right, so C is the product automaton. So the construction is the same as we have seen earlier. Only the final states are different. Right? But how do we mark the final states of C? So that the language of C is equal to the language of A union the language of B. Okay, cost will be saying okay. So F1 Q2 plus Q1 F2. So this is F1 cross Q2 union Q1 cross F1. Yeah, so that is correct, right? So both the answers are correct, right? So we will have F1 cross Q2, right? Union Q1 cross F2. So this should be the final states of the automaton C. So the reason is that if you end up in one of these states, right, then you know that either the automaton A or the automaton B is in the final state, right? So which means that the string is either in the language of A or it's in the language of B. So that's why yeah, so that's why this would be the final states. Yeah. Okay. So in this way, you can also sort of construct the automaton uh, automatically, right? From the individual automatons of the two languages, right? Yeah, in case you want to express in case you want to construct the automaton for the union of two languages. Okay, so now let's look at complementation. So what's the complement of a language, right? So a language L, right, we know is a subset of sigma star. So the complement of a language L, basically with respect to an alphabet sigma, would be sigma star minus L. So this is the set of all strings which are not present in L. Right? So what can we say about complementation, right? So would regular languages be closed under complementation as well? Right? And if so, right? Uh, so we have seen that regular languages are closed under union, under intersection, and under difference, right? So can we use one of these properties to also show that regular languages are closed under complementation? Okay, so we can use closure under difference. Yeah, Alan is saying we can use closure under difference, right? So that is correct. Right? So notice that this complement, right, is just this, right? So it's sigma star minus L. So we know that sigma star is regular. So in fact, right, so this is the most simplest regular language in some ways, right? So this would be the language whose automaton would just be a single state, right? And that would also be the final state, and you would basically just remain in that state, right, for all possible symbols. So since sigma star is regular, right, and we know that L is regular, because that's what we are trying to show. Right? So we are trying to show whether or not regular languages are closed under complementation. So we'll take a regular language L, and we'll ask whether or not its complement is regular. So since sigma star is regular and L is regular, and we have just shown that regular languages are closed under difference, so that's why sigma star minus L is also going to be regular. Yeah. So that's why so sigma star is regular, and therefore the complement of a regular language is also regular. Okay, so now let's look at a slightly more complex operation, right? So this is a reversal. So let's go through this step by step, right? So in the rest of this lecture, right, the plan is that we are actually going to we will actually first define what is this reversal of a language, and we will show we will then construct an automaton, right? So given an automaton for a language, we will see how to construct an automaton which accepts the reverse of that language. And then we will also formally prove that this automaton actually accepts the reverse of the language. Right? So yeah, so that's the plan for the rest of this lecture. So let's get started. Okay. So let's first define what is the reversal of a string. Right? So this is very straightforward. Right? So this is just the string written in reverse order. Right? So if you have the string W, which consists of the symbols A1, A2, AN1, AN minus 1 up to AN, then its reverse would be the string written in reverse, right? So it's AN minus 1, and so on up to A1. Okay. So if you're given a language L, right, then we use this notation LR, right? So we also use this notation WR to denote the string of to denote the reversal of a particular string, right? And for a language L, we use this notation LR, which is the reverse of which is basically the language which consists of reversals of all strings in L. So you basically take every string in L, right, and you compute its reverse, and the language that you get is going to be LR. So, for example, if you have, so if the language L is the 0, 0, 1 and 1, 0, 0, right, then its reverse would be the reversal of all the individual strings. Right? So the reverse of 0 is 0 itself. The reverse of 0, 1 is 1, 0, and the reverse of 1, 0, 0 is 0, 0, 1. So that's why. So that's how we can say that LR. So that's how we compute LR, right? It is the reversal of the language L. Okay. So we will show now, right, how to construct the NFA of LR from the NFA of L. Okay. So we are given we are given the NFA of L, right, and we want to construct the NFA of LR. Okay. Uh, right. So let me do some notes here. Okay, so let's do this, right? So let's say that we are given this NFA for L, right? So let's call this NFA as M. So let's call this NFA as M, okay. And this is given by some set of states Q sigma delta M. Let's call this the set of start states and set of final states M. Okay. Uh, and we want to construct the NFA for NFA which would accept the reversal of this language of M. So any suggestions for how we can do this? Okay, Costa is saying reverse the transition function. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so that's actually correct, right? So what we will do, right, is that we will basically reverse the transition function, right? So let's say in the original automaton, right, if you had a transition from Q to Q prime on some symbol A, so then in the automaton which for the reversal of this language, right, you basically reverse the direction, right? So you will now have a transition uh, from Q prime to Q, okay, on the same symbol A. So yeah, so that's how we will define this automaton N, right? So let's formally define this, right? So this automaton N, right, is going to have the same set of states. Right? It's going to have the same alphabet. The transition function is going to be different. So what about the start states and the final states? Yeah, so Vikram is saying, yeah, swap them. Yeah, so that's correct, right? So now the start states, right, are going to be the final states of M, and the final states are going to be the start states of M. And let's also define this delta n, right? So let's define this formally. Right? Uh, so how should we write this? Sorry. So how should we write this formally, right? So we will say that so if Q prime belongs to delta m of Q comma A, if and only if Q belongs to delta m in the reverse automaton, right? You're going to have a transition from Q prime to Q on the same symbol A. Right. So this is the complete specification, right, of this reverse automaton, right, which accepts the reversal of the language, right? So uh, let's actually look at an example, right, to make this more clear, right? So let's say that so we had this automaton which accepted all strings which begin in one, right? We just saw this in this class itself, right? So okay, so this one had, so that automaton had two states, right? So rather which ends in one, right? So that's what we had the automaton for, right? Uh, so This was the start state, right? So since we are looking for automaton which accepts strings which ends in 1, so whenever we see a 0, we will go to a non-final state, right? And whenever we see a 1, we will go to a final state, and then we will remain here if we see 0. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Right? So I think this is the automaton which accepts strings which end in 1. Yes. So let's look. So let's construct the reverse automaton for this. So in the reverse automaton, the states are the same. So the start state and the final state are swapped, but here they are the same, right? So even after swapping, we will get the same state, right? And the transitions are swapped. Okay? So the self loops are going to remain, okay? But the transitions are going to be swapped. So I'm going to have a transition here from this state to this state on 0, and then from this state to state on 1. Okay. I think this is correct. Okay. So this is the automaton that I get, right? Uh, so what's the reverse of this language, right? Strings which end in 1. Intuitively, right? What would be the reverse of this language? See, if you have a string which ends in 1, and if you reverse it, then what do you get? Yeah, strings with begin with 1. So therefore, so this automaton should accept strings which begin with 1. Right? And epsilon is also there in both. So that the reverse of epsilon is epsilon itself, so that's fine. So does this automaton actually accept strings which begin with 1? So note that this automaton was a DFA, right? But so is this automaton a DFA or not? The reverse automaton. Yeah, it's not a DFA, right? So when you reverse, right? So in the case of a DFA, right? You have a unique transition for every symbol, right? Uh, but when you reverse, that is no longer the case, right? So this is actually an NFA, right? So we have two transitions on 1 and we have two transitions on 0, right? So for the start state, right? You have two transitions on 1, and for the other state, you have two transitions on 0. Also, there is no transition on 0, right? From the start state. Okay? Uh, so what can we say about this automaton? So does this automaton actually accept strings which begin with 1? Okay, Costa is saying no. Why is that? Okay, it will accept. So if you actually look at this closely, right? So there is no transition on 0 from the start state, which means that if you have a string which begins in 0, then then there are no transitions, right? So you will get to this empty set of states, which is not a final state, and therefore you won't accept it, right? But if a string starts with 0, rather if a string starts with 1, right, then you have two choices here, right? So you can either remain there, right, or you can move to this other state, right? But that is fine, right? Because as long as so I think that you can sort of work this out on your own, right? That it's actually going to accept all strings which begin with 1, right? So hence there is a choice that you can make, right? Such that if you have any string which begins with 1, then you can choose a sequence of transitions such that you will get to a final state of this NFA, right? So this NFA does actually accept strings which begin with 1. Okay? And in fact, that's what we will show, right, in general. So we will show that if you start with any arbitrary NFA, right, and you simply reverse the directions of the transition, then you will get this new NFA which will accept the reversal of this language. Okay? So So the reason that I'm going through this proof in detail, right, is because some of you really struggled with the formal proofs in the test as well, right? So I think this is slightly long proof, right, and also help you in so it also help you in figuring out, right, how to write proofs of this kind, right, and how to be precise, right, when you write proofs. Okay, so let's do this, right? So let's first define, right? So let me just revise what we know about the acceptance criteria of NFA, right? So we have defined this extended transition function delta hat for NFAs, right? So this delta hat is defined over a set of states rather. So if you have a set of states, let's call it as A, right? And if you have the word W, right, then this delta hat is defined as so. So this word W, right, can be written as XA, and so this is defined recursively, right? So if you're trying to find the set of all states that you can reach, like if you begin in a state in A and you process the entire string XA, right, then you first process the string X, right, which is the prefix of the string XA, right? And you consider all possible states that you can reach. Right? So this is delta hat of A comma X. Right? So we have Q belongs to delta hat of A comma X, and then you will consider all the states that you can reach in the next step. So this is delta of Q comma A. So in an NFA, right, this will be the set of all states that you can reach if you begin in a state in A and then process the string XA, right? And okay, so Kothapal is asking, are the start state and final state reversed? So they are, right, because they are the same, right? So the start state and the final state is the same. So even if you reverse them, they will remain the same. Uh, so I hope that that's clear. Okay, yeah, right. So how do we define whether or not a string is accepted by an NFA or not, right? So we compute this extended transition function on the string, right? We begin from the start states S, right? And finally, right, if we end up in one of the final states, then the string would be accepted, otherwise it won't be accepted, right? So we compute this delta hat of S comma W, right? And then we take its intersection with F. And if this is non-empty, then the string is accepted, otherwise it's not accepted. Okay. Right. So we have defined this automaton n, right? And we want to show that. So what is it that we want to prove, right? So we want to prove that this language of this automaton, right? This language of n is equal to the reverse of the language of m. This is what we want to show. Uh, so so what we will show, right, is that so intuitively, right, what happens is that if you compute the extended transition function in M, right, it's sort of like the reverse of the extended transition function in N. So what we will show, right, so we will prove that so we'll prove something that's very similar to how we defined the transition function, right, of this NFA. Right? So we'll show that if Q prime belongs to delta hat M of let's say some set of states A. Um, okay, so let me actually take a single state here. Q comma W. So if and only if Q belongs to delta hat N of Q prime comma WR. Okay, so let's look at what this is saying, right? Okay, so this statement is saying that if you begin in a state Q, right, and you process the entire string W, right, in the automaton M, you end up in a state Q prime, then the reverse thing happens in the reverse automaton. Right? It's that if you begin in Q prime and you process the reverse of the string, then you will end up in the state Q. Okay, so why is this enough to show that the language of N is going to be the reverse of the language of M? So the question is that if we prove this, right, then it's enough. So then this would actually imply this. Right? So we have also switched the start states and the final states, right? So what happens if a word is accepted by the original automaton M, right? So that would mean that there is a path from the start state to the final state of that automaton, right? But we have just seen, right, that if we can show this, right, then it would mean that there is basically going to be a path in the reverse order, right, from the final state to the start state uh, of this reverse automaton, right, on the reverse of the string. And since we have switched the start states and the final states, right, so which means that a final state is now a start state and a start state is now a final state. So that would mean that that particular string, the reverse of that string, is also accepted by this reverse automaton, right? So what I'm saying is that in the original automaton, right, there is a path from Q to Q prime on W. Okay. Now, if we show this property, right, then that would mean that in this reverse automaton, there's a path in the reverse direction on WR from Q prime, rather, uh, from Q prime to Q, right? And since this would have been a start state and this would have been a final state in the original automaton, right? So in the reverse automaton, it would be the opposite, right? So this would be a start state and this would be a final state. So that's why this string is going to be accepted. And that's how we show that this language is actually the language of this automaton is actually the reverse of the language of the original automaton. Okay. So this is the property that we want to show. Okay. So the only way to, rather the standard way to show properties like this, right, is to use induction. Okay. So let's do that, right? So let's directly apply induction in order to prove this. Okay. So we will use induction on the length of the string W. So that means that we need to consider the base case, right? So the base case is when W is equal to epsilon. So why does this hold in the case of W is equal to epsilon? Okay, so KV Vikram is saying both sides are false. Okay, That is not true. So in fact, you can say something about q prime and q, right? If you have epsilon. So note that we are not, yeah, so at the moment we are focusing just on NFA, right? So there are no epsilon transitions. Yeah, so it's true if q is equal to q prime. So Costa is saying that it's true if q is equal to q prime. So that's correct, right? So in fact, right, this delta hat m of this q comma epsilon uh, is basically going to be equal to the set q itself, right? So if q prime belongs to that set, then q prime must be equal to q. And the same goes for the other way around, right? So in sense, the delta hat n of this q prime comma epsilon. So the reverse of epsilon is epsilon itself. So this would also be equal to just the set q prime. Sorry. Right. And so we just established that q is equal to q prime. So that would mean that both the sets are basically same. So yeah. So that's why the base case is trivial, right? Okay. So here we have just used the definition, right, of this delta hat m. So this delta hat or the extended transition function on epsilon, right, just stays where it is. Right? So this delta hat n of any set of states in epsilon is just is the same set of states. Okay, so let's now do the inductive case. So here we will assume that W is equal to some XA, right? And so we will also assume the inductive hypothesis. Right? So the inductive hypothesis, sorry, right? So the inductive hypothesis here is basically the same statement, right? But holds for A. Okay? So we'll say that okay, if Q prime belongs to delta hat M of Q comma X, okay? Then if and only if Q would belong to delta hat N of Q prime comma XR. So this is the inductive hypothesis. Okay? And we want to show that the same thing holds for W is equal to XA. Okay. Okay. So let's do this, right? So let's say that so let me just pictorially write this as well, right? So so let's say that from Q, right? I'm going to some Q double prime via X, and then from here I'm going to Q prime. So this is in the automaton M. Okay. So I'm assuming that that this Q prime, right, belongs to delta hat M of Q comma Xa. Right? But we know, right, that from the definition of delta hat M, right, there would exist this Q double prime, which would belong to this delta hat M of Q comma X. Right? And so this should be Q double prime, and then this Q prime should belong to delta M of Q double prime comma A. So this is from the definition of the extended transition function, right? In the sense that if you want to compute this extended transition function on XA, right, then you would first compute it on X, right? So there must be some intermediate state Q double prime, right? And then you will perform the next transition on A, right? So okay, so this is from the definition of the extended transition function. Okay. So what can we do next? So what's going to happen in the reverse automaton, right? So in the automaton n, right, can we use the inductive hypothesis and can we use the definition of the transition function, right, delta n, in this reverse automaton? Okay. So Kovuri Shravan Kumar Reddy is saying consider Q triple prime in the reverse NFA corresponding to Q double prime. Okay. See, in the reverse automaton, right? What's going to happen in the reverse automaton? So there's going to be this transition from Q prime to Q double prime, right, on A in the reverse automaton. And what can we say, right, about so can we apply the inductive hypothesis on X itself? Okay. So Alan Joel is saying use the inductive hypothesis for Q and Q double prime and use the definition of delta n. So that is correct, right? So let's do that. Let's apply the inductive hypothesis for Q double prime and Q. Okay. So based on the inductive hypothesis, right? Let me also pictorially write this. So based on the inductive hypothesis, okay. So based on the inductive hypothesis, right, I can say that there is going to be this particular transition, right, in n, right, and so this based on the definition of delta n, and on the inductive hypothesis, I can say that there's going to be this transition on xr. So I can write this formally as sorry. So I can write this formally as this q, right, is going to belong to delta hat n of q double prime comma xr, okay, and I can also say that this now say that q double prime is going to belong to delta n of q prime comma a, okay. So on a there is a transition from q prime to q double prime, and then from q double prime there is a transition on xr to q, okay. This is what I can say from the inductive hypothesis, okay. So okay, so what can we infer from this? Okay, so at this point we are actually sort of stuck, right? Because we can't really. So we need an additional result here, right? So ideally, right, what we want to say at this point is that so we want to say that so this should sort of imply, right, that this Q should belong to delta hat n of uh, this delta n of q prime comma a comma xr, okay. Uh, and then this should imply that that q should belong to delta hat n of q prime comma a xr, because that would sorry, because that would then prove the result that we want to show, right? That if there is a transition from q prime to q on xa, then on the reverse, which is axr, there's a transition from uh, there's a transition from sorry there's a transition from q to q prime on xa, then there is a transition from q prime to q on axr, right? But we don't know, right, whether or not these two results hold or not, right? So that's why we will actually so we need an additional lemma here, right? So we will prove two additional lemmas, right? So let's call this as lemma one, right? So in lemma one, right, what we'll show is that so in lemma one we'll try to show this property. So formally you can write this uh, as follows, right? So you can say that if q it belongs to delta hat of some set, let's call it a and w, right? Then this is true if and only if there exists some q prime such that q prime belongs to a and q belongs to delta hat of sorry, let me write this here, and q belongs to delta hat of uh, uh, q prime comma w. Okay. So what this is saying, right, is that if you have this arbitrary set A, right, and if you have Q which belongs to delta hat of A comma W, then there exists some state Q prime in A, right, such that Q belongs to delta hat of that Q prime comma W. Right. So here, right, we know that okay, so we know that this Q double prime is in this set, right, which is this delta n of q prime comma a, right? And we know that q is in delta hat n of q double prime xr, right? So from that we can infer that so if we have this lemma, right, then we can take a to be this set, and from there we can infer that q would actually belong to delta hat n of this set delta n q prime of a comma xr. Okay. Uh, and we need another lemma, right? So for this lemma, so this lemma would say something about another way of deconstructing this string, right? So right, so let me write down this lemma, right, which would help us to make this step. Okay. uh, so this lemma would say that delta hat of uh, some set a comma ax, right? So here a is a symbol and x is a string, then this would actually be equal to uh, delta of a comma a, and then that applied on x. Okay. So delta hat of a comma x is actually equal to delta of a comma x. Right. So if you are processing this string ax, right, then you can first process the symbol a, right, using delta. Right. So here I need delta hat. Okay. And then you can process the rest of the string. Okay. So now if we have this, right, then I can directly apply this lemma uh, in this step. Right? So if I directly apply this lemma in this step, right? So I have delta hat n of delta n q prime comma a comma xr, right? So then that would actually be equal to delta hat n of q prime applied on a comma xr. Okay. Uh, and, this should be in square braces. Okay. So if you have these two lemmas, then this result directly follows, right? Uh, and in fact, so here we have just proved one direction, but you can also prove the other direction in similar way, right? So in order to prove these two lemmas, right, you again need to do an induction on the length of W. Okay. So so again, so in the lecture, in the lecture slides, right, I will actually include the proofs of these two lemmas as well. Okay. And with these two lemmas, that would actually complete the proof of induction, and that would finally show that the language of this reverse automaton is actually the reverse of the language of the original automaton. Okay. So 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 I advise everyone, right, to go back and try to do this proof on their own, right? So it's sort of an important part of this course, right, of how to reason about things formally and how to write formal proofs. Okay. uh, yeah, so are there any questions regarding this proof? Okay, so in that case, let's end this lecture here, right? And we will meet again tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, Madhav is asking what is the syllabus for Thursday's test, right? So it's going to be everything up to tomorrow. And so we will try to ask questions from the part after the first test, right? So it won't include the DFAs, right? But NFAs will be there, right? Since we covered some part of the NFAs after the first test, and regular expressions will be there, and closure properties will also be there. Okay.